This is Karen with newclevelandradio.net, and it's time for Avoid the Maze. The maze is that journey in life. Now, there's no direct line going from here to there. The journey takes twists, turns, and throws obstacles in our way. But at each intersection, we have choices. And when we walk with mindfulness, we become more attuned to our surroundings and the expected opportunities that rise with each step. Now, you don't have to navigate the path alone. There are others just like you, staring down blank walls and wondering which direction to take next. This podcast is a space for shared experiences because sometimes the story you hear may echo your own. And that moment of connection may be exactly what you need. Today, my guest is Tammy McCoy. I met Tammy on podmatch.com. And what wanted me to have you on as a guest is the fact that you took the time to write a story for your granddaughter. And we all need heroes, but sometimes we can't find heroes that look like us, sound like us, act like us. But you knew she needed it. So take us on this journey of writing and how you got to this.
Sure, no problem. So when I first set out to write a book, I actually was going to be writing an adult book. In addition to being a writer, I'm a nurse. I'm a psych nurse. So I was going to do a thriller based on a psych nurse. But I came across a study showing how many children's books feature children with special needs, especially as the protagonist. And I haven't done a deep dive into it since coming across that study, but it was 3.4% is what the study said. And I have a grandchild who was diagnosed with Dravet syndrome. It is a severe and sometimes catastrophic seizure disorder that can create a cascade of other issues, everything from physical to behavioral to emotional issues. So a lot of these kids have seizures weekly, daily, sometimes multiple times a day. They're extremely long seizures, often like 30, 40, 50 minutes, sometimes even longer. Yes. And if you've ever seen someone have a seizure, 1 minute feels like a lifetime,
right? Exactly.
Especially to the family members. So all of that causes issues for these kids, and a lot of them require lifelong care. So when my grandchild was diagnosed with this, she was very young when she got the diagnosis, which is typically when it's caught because the children have seizures very early in life, usually their first year. So she was in her first year of life when she had her first seizure. And so when she received that diagnosis, I was afraid because being a nurse, I was familiar with that. You know, I didn't know what to expect. We've been very fortunate where we've been able to control the seizures for over a year now. Due to we found a good concoction of meds. Well, one particular med has really helped. And my grandchild goes to therapy a lot. But so watching her, you know, go through physical, occupational, speech therapy, and everything that she has to live with on a daily basis, and then coming across that study that said there isn't a lot out there for kids with disabilities, it sort of made me mad. It lit a fire under me. So I switched gears and I started writing my book called Delilah versus the Ghastly Grin. This is what it looks like. It's a middle grade novel. Kind of like what I wanted to do is make it like a bit like Percy Jackson meets Harry Potter, but with a special needs protagonist. So that way kids could enjoy it, but it's written in an authentic way to properly represent kids who have disabilities. And the whole purpose is for kids with disabilities to be able to see themselves in the stories that they read, because that is the issue. We don't have enough inclusion. We don't have enough representation in the children's market as it is right now.
Well, you know, it's not just in books, it's in so much other media that we need to understand these things. My oldest son, when he was 11 months old, we were driving from the airport. We had dropped his dad off at the airport, and I was going back to my mother's house. And I was sitting in the back seat with him, And I started screaming to my mother. I said, his eyes are rolling back. Didn't
Oh,
even know what it was. Um, I didn't even put the word seizure in my mouth because I was terrified. And my mother, sitting in the front driving, just said, I'm going to go find the nearest hospital. And it's in a community that we're not familiar with, but we ended up in a hospital. And he's sort of coming out of it, but his head is hanging back. And I'm thinking, oh my God, he was just jabbering in the back seat. Um, as it turns out, he had a febrile seizure, but he had no fever, which that was the thing that I didn't understand. How do you have a seizure caused by a fever, but you don't have a fever? It was later explained to me. He, for the next 5 years, was treated for a possible seizure disorder.
okay.
But we found that we had no way to understand it. And because we were supposed to keep him safe from certain activities, when we would read him books about kids putting on a cape and jumping off of a couch, we couldn't let him do that. So we had to reinvent
Yes.
ourselves. We didn't think about writing a book, we just labeled it something else. But is there a reason why we aren't taking care of this population? Because they're smart kids and they deserve to have everything that the rest of us have.
So I did look that up because I was curious about that myself. And what I found was part of the problem is one, the gatekeepers. They look at what will sell the fastest, what will make the most money. So the gatekeepers do control what gets out to the public. It has changed since people are able to self-publish. But also a lot of what was being released for kids with disabilities would come out with something like they would cure the issue, or it wasn't presented in an authentic way, or it was just so designed to educate that you didn't interest the children that you wrote the book for, kind of thing. So when I went to write the book, I wanted to ensure that it was written in a way that kids will want to read it while learning without even realizing that they were going to be learning about
Exactly.
something, kind of thing. Because if I feel like when you start preaching to people, they kind of shut down.
Right.
So I was trying to avoid that in this book. And I think that's part of the problem with the inclusive books for kids. Either they're too preachy, they're too educational, where to the point, I think they're good to be educational. It's great to be educational, but to the point where you're losing the kids that you're writing for. Or they're designed to fix the illness rather than empower the child, which is part of the problem.
Exactly.
My goal is not to make Delilah like everybody else by the end of the book. She's still Delilah. She still has a seizure disorder by the end of the book. And I'm not giving that away. That's just part of who she is as a person in the book and in real life. So I'm not going to take that from her. That's part of her journey in this world.
I can totally understand your logic there. My youngest son is on the autism spectrum, although he's very high functioning. And he's been asked many times, if they gave you a pill today that would cure your autism, would you take it? And he says, no. He says, this is who I am. You know,
I love
take,
that.
take it or leave it. And, he has matured into a young adult. Does he still have some issues? Yeah, he's never going to get rid of it, but he's learned to adapt. Okay. And that's what I think the rest of us have to do. We have to learn to adapt to all different people around us. Um, you know, to a child with seizure disorder, you and I may look a little weird because we don't have seizure disorders. We don't have to worry about that. But, you know, we're all different. And I think when we can share and share in a way that's a form of entertainment is very important. So when,
You know,
go
the
ahead.
the fact that you said your child has is on the spectrum. Dravet kind of works like that. It works like a spectrum where you have high functioning kids and then you have kids that will require lifelong care. And I think that that is important to kind of show that we are all different. And I try to explain it to others where when you go to a movie or when you read a book, do you want to read a book where everyone is exactly alike? Or do you want to see differences? Do you want to watch somebody who maybe has something that you've never seen before succeed at something that would be challenging for them? What really do you want to see? And it's not going to be you want us all the same, because that's just boring.
Right.
You know, what if we lived in a world where everyone was exactly the same? You wouldn't want to live in that world. So it's okay to be different. And sometimes it's great to be different. And that's what I did with this book. When I wrote it, I said I wanted to take what most people would view as a weakness and turn it around and make it her greatest strength. And that's what the book is kind of premised on.
So is Delilah old enough to understand the book? I don't know how old she is.
No, she's
Okay.
not. She's turning 4 tomorrow. So she knows a book was written for her, and she'll like walk around with the book and hug it because the character looks like her. I specifically had the artist, you know, make the character, even the white streak. Delilah was born with a white streak in her hair. So she has brown hair with a white streak. So I wanted her to look like the real girl. But the story is, it can be a little bit dark because she goes to a fantasy world where she faces some scary creatures, monsters, and then the villain, the Ghastly Grim. So she's not ready for that yet. But she does know about the book and kind of has an understanding about why it was written and what it was for, kind of thing. But she does not know the story itself. She's not ready for that. She's too young. It's really for middle school. Some say even young adults will really like it. A lot of the younger adults who have read it seem to really like it too.
Well, and they're probably the ones who need to read books like this so they can understand that life isn't always going to be perfect. I know when my son was born, my youngest son, we were told he's perfect. And for the first 6 years of his life, you know, he was neurotypical. We called him perfect. But one day he had an episode in class. The school said, you have to go get a diagnosis. We don't know what's going on with him. And then he got the diagnosis of being on the spectrum. So one day he went from being so-called normal to abnormal at the school level. And we kept saying he's the same person. Yes. He has the same abilities today as he had yesterday. You know, there's some things that he may need to tweak. Maybe he can, maybe he can't. But again, when I was pregnant with him and being told, you have a perfect child, your thought is, it's going to be perfect the rest of his life and your life. It's not always that way. And so these books are important for us to understand. There are all different people out there with all different issues. And many of the issues we can find, maybe not remedies for, but we can find a way for that child to have a good and decent life, especially for the rest of the family as well. So being a nurse, how much medical is in this book or none?
No, there's some medical in there. I kind of display very subtly the medical side. Now, in the book, Delilah is put into a medically induced coma, which is why she's trapped in Othersphere, the fantasy world. So when that happens, it was very important to kind of explain why that was happening. But it's done very gently. It's not heavy. I didn't include heavy medical terms or anything like that because it wouldn't have been appropriate for a middle grade fantasy level book. So you will see some medical stuff like what they do when she has a seizure, how they put her on her side, you know, and that is something that kind of teaches, but in a way where it's just telling as part of the story.
Sure.
And that is something that you should do when somebody has a seizure, you know,
Right.
You put them on the side, you protect them, so forth. I even have videos on my website on what to do. But yeah, I wanted to include some of it, but not just overburden it with it. So, and I am a psych nurse. I don't work in a hospital. It's a kind of a different field based on what I do and the medications that I work with as far as when I administer meds. I actually work in admissions, so it's more assessment based.
So, do you have any other books on your agenda?
Well, yes, there will be a part two. I left this one open, so there will be a part two. I started my own imprint, Blue Round Book Group, for this book, and so a lot of marketing is involved at this point because it's a new launch. It just came out a little over a month ago, so it hasn't been out very long. So right now we're doing a lot of the marketing, and then I'll get back into writing. I think I have close to 15,000 words done of the next book. It'll be in the area of, I don't know, 55, 60,000 words. And then usually I go through a lot of edits. I think it took 30 edits before I released Delilah versus the Ghastly Grim. It went through 2 professional edits, one by the editor of The Hunger Games, and then another by an award-winning author and agent. So they both kind of helped guide me with getting Delilah versus the Ghastly Grim to a level where it was professional and ready to be released.
So, being a writer and self-publishing, we know it's not easy. We know you're writing. Now you need to edit it. And like you said, you have to find people that are willing to edit it, and you have to trust those people. I know somebody had tried to encourage me to do some writing, and I started and I sent it to that person who herself is a writer, and she just demoralized me on everything that I wrote with no good instruction. And so it was like, you know what, I'm not ready to do this. So I know it's not easy because you're putting your time into writing, then you're looking for the people to edit it, and self-publishing, then you've got to market it. So do you think this is the best road to go, or is it easier to go find a publisher?
So I think there are pluses and minuses to both sides. One, I don't think you should give up on your writing. Let me backtrack to
Well,
that.
I am writing.
Okay, good. Because I think writing is very subjective. You'll get one person who will hate what you wrote, and you'll get one person who loves what you wrote. Everybody's a little bit different with their tastes, and you just don't know what the public's gonna connect with or what will hit. Pluses and minuses to both sides as far as working with professional publishing companies like the Big Five, Scholastic and Schuster, all of those. So one, they do have a larger reach. They have built-in marketing teams like departments, and that will really help you. But they get more say and control, and it takes a lot longer for the book to come out. So I'm a little bit older. I really wanted to get the book. I'm a grandma. So I really wanted to get the book out to the public, and I really wanted the book to be my own and not the control to be my own. So there are, the hard part of that is the marketing. I do think that there are barriers erected that affect self-published authors. Can you overcome those? Yes, but it takes a lot of hard work, a lot of outreach. I get up super early and I stay up very late, and I pretty much work all day. When I'm not working as a nurse, I'm working on marketing or I'm working on writing. So it's a lot of work. Have I had success with Delilah versus the Ghastly Grim? It's won 3 awards, and it's placed on 3 different bestseller lists on Amazon. So it's doing well, but it's also very new, and it takes time to build an organic audience.
Right.
I think your first book, you start off kind of getting known, like you can trust me as a writer, read it. If you like it, great. If you don't, great. But it's going to say, like, you're going to connect with those who really like your type of work and style. And then from there, your second book, I think, is a little bit easier because you have things in place. I'm learning as I go. I wasn't in marketing. I do have a lot of education, so I'm able to do probably a lot more than some others. Like I very quickly picked up on how to use AI for marketing. I didn't use it in writing the book or in the cover. I hired an illustrator for the cover. I wrote the book and I had it edited by humans. I wanted that to be human-based, but I do use AI for marketing. For example, I create animated videos that are on YouTube right now. So that takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of effort. I have a commercial that's on streaming. I think it's been on Roku so far, Tubi so far. It's been on a few things. And so all of that is the hard part of doing it yourself. So I think if you're a writer and you want to do it yourself, there are big advantages with as far as you're controlling it. You do the outreach, you decide who's making the decisions, and that's all a plus. The downside is the bigger companies have built-in systems in place to get you known faster, but I don't think it is what it used to be. From what I'm reading, a lot of people have said that even with a contract in hand from a publisher, they don't do quite as much marketing as you think, especially for a new person trying to get their book out there, because it's expensive. So you're more likely, if you're well known, you're more likely to get what you're wanting. And if you're not as well known, you're probably going to have to put in some effort yourself anyway. So then it's a decision you have to make as an individual.
Well, I think that's like anything that we want in this world, we have to put the energy into it. I have people who will say to me, why are you doing so many podcasts a day? Well, I took part of last week off and I knew that I had to catch up, because if I don't, my listeners will start to fade away. And I don't want that to happen, because I like having individuals like you come on and sharing your story. And hopefully we can get them to go read the story, because all that information will be in the show notes. Is there anything particular you want us to know before we end this conversation today?
So the book is available on Amazon. It's also available on Ingram Spark. It's getting more and more well known. It's got excellent reviews so far. Most people who have read it have said that they loved it. It's been reviewed by Reader's Favorite, given 5 stars. It's been reviewed by Literary Titan and given 5 stars, won an award for that, won a Children's International Book Award or something like that. So it's something I believe that will resonate with kids who have disabilities, and not just them, because it's a really fun kind of fast-paced, action-packed book. So anybody who likes Percy Jackson or the magical world of like Harry Potter would probably like it. People who like Narnia would probably like it. So those are kind of stories that if you like those kind of stories, you'll probably like Delilah versus the Ghastly Grimm. But even if you don't choose to buy or read Delilah versus the Ghastly Grimm, I'm hoping that you will understand the need for more inclusive books and help promote and advocate for children who deserve to have stories that they can feel like they can connect with the characters in those stories, instead of always feeling separated by the books that are out there. That is the goal of something like this. So even if you didn't choose Delilah versus the Ghastly Grimm, there are other books out there that maybe you could encourage kids to read that will promote inclusion and better representation. So
well, thank you for that. I think that's extremely important. We wish you best of luck on Delilah versus the Ghastly Grimm and the second version that comes out. And give hugs to Delilah for us, okay?
Thank you so much. And you should message me about the book that you're writing.
Well,
I will.
Thank you, Tammy. Have a great day. Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you.